Did you know that human evolution happened in stages, starting right here in East Africa? The first known man is said to have walked the world roughly 15 million years ago, and that is when the evolution of man started. Human evolution began in East Africa, moving through 4 stages, from upright apes to tool makers, travelers, and finally, the modern humans that we know today. Basically, us. East Africa is considered the cradle of humankind because fossils of the earliest human ancestors like Dryopithecus and Australopithecus have all been found in regions of East Africa, including Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania. East Africa is also considered the origin of human beings because this region gave rise to the genus Homo, which includes Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and eventually Homo Sapiens. So, what stages of human evolution did human beings go through? Here's everything that you need to know. Stage 1, Aegyptopithecus. The name Aegyptopithecus means Egyptian ape, and it is one of the earliest known ancestors of human beings. And the Aegyptopithecus was small, only weighing about 4 kilograms. So, what were some of the features of the Aegyptopithecus? Believed to be more than 33 million years old, a 4 kg small skull remains were found in Fayum Depression. Professionals believe that the Egyptian ape or the Aegyptopithecus lived at a time when Egypt was a very forested area, and that most probably meant that the Egyptian ape ate plants. So, this early ancestor of human beings was a herbivore. It also had good vision and could jump easily from one tree to another using its hands, as monkeys do. And interestingly, this earliest known ancestor of humans is also sometimes known as the dawn apes. So there we have it, the first stage of evolution, the Aegyptopithecus. Stage 2 of the human evolution, Dryopithecus africanus, also known as proconsul. Dryopithecus africanus or proconsul is said to have lived from about 23 to 14 million years ago. So, what were the features of the Dryopithecus? First, its skull looked more like that of modern human apes compared to that of the Aegyptopithecus. It also moved on all 4s, similar to chimpanzees, and it had long teeth like other animals, and the shape of its teeth and jaws shows that it ate fruits. What's so important, especially as we talk about how East Africa is celebrated as the origin of early man, is that the remains of the Dryopithecus africanus or the proconsul were found on Rusinga Island in 1948. This discovery of remains of the Dryopithecus was made by Mary Leakey and Louis Leakey, the famous husband and wife duo who studied early human beings. And as I've mentioned, Mary and Louis Leakey were husband and wife, and the two worked together on many important discoveries about early humans in East Africa. In particular, Louis Leakey was one of the world's most respected experts on human origins. He believed that humans first evolved in East Africa, particularly in Kenya and Tanzania, and worked hard throughout his life to prove this idea through his research and his discoveries. His wife, Mary Leakey, on the other hand, was also just as highly respected, but she was a paleoanthropologist who discovered many important fossils and ancient tools that helped scientists understand early human life. So, when the remains of the Dryopithecus were discovered in Rusinga Island in 1948, it helped strengthen the belief that East Africa was indeed the first homeland of humankind. Stage 3, Kenyapithecus, also known as Ramapithecus. Dryopithecus was an early ape-like ancestor that is believed to have lived between 15 and 12 million years ago. So where was it found? The Dryopithecus fossil was first discovered in 1961 at Fort Tanan, Kericho District, Kenya by Lewis and Mary Leakey. Other fossils were later found in Samburu Hills, Lake Baringo, and the Lake Turkana Basin. A similar extinct genus of ape was also found in India's Siwalik Hills. So what were its features? Unlike earlier apes that mostly moved on all fours, Dryopithecus could sometimes walk on two legs without falling. This was an early step towards the way humans walk today. Earlier apes had big, sharp canine teeth. Dryopithecus, on the other hand, had smaller teeth, more like humans, which means that this stage of human evolution also came with lots of changes in diet and their social behavior. This stage of human evolution was important because this was the stage in which our very early ancestors were starting to look less ape-like and a bit more human, long before we humans appeared. Let's look at the fourth stage of human evolution, Australopithecus. Years ago, a number of species known as Australopithecines began to appear. The Australopithecines were among the earliest hominids closer to modern humans. And when we say Australopithecines were among the earliest hominids closer to modern humans, we mean they were early ancestors that had both ape-like and human-like features. So, what were some of these features? 1. Australopithecines could walk upright because they had pelvises and legs that were shaped like ours, which means it was easier for them to move and walk on 2 feet. They also had smaller teeth and jaws, moving away from the very large fangs of earlier apes. They also boasted bigger brains, not as large as modern humans, but larger than gorillas or chimpanzees. Where were the remains of Australopithecines found? In 1924, Raymond Dutt discovered the remains of a creature he named Australopithecus at Taung in Botswana. In 1959, Dr. Lewis and Dr. Mary Leakey also found 2 types of Australopithecine at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, and they called them Australopithecus africanus, also known as gracilis, and the second one was called robustus or boisei, also known as Zinjanthropus or nutcracker. In addition to knowing about Australopithecines, you need to know that there are 4 types of Australopithecines in this stage of human evolution. The first type of Australopithecine is known as Australopithecus anamensis. This was the oldest Australopithecus, said to have lived about 4.2 to 3.8 million years ago. The fossil of Australopithecus anamensis were found in Kenya and Ethiopia. The second type of Australopithecines is known as Australopithecus afarensis. And Australopithecus afarensis was first identified in the 1970s based on fossils from Hadar and Laetoli. So it is important to mention that Australopithecus afarensis survived for nearly 900,000 years, making it one of the longest lived early human species. A famous fossil called Lucy, discovered in 1974 at Hadar, Ethiopia by Donald Johnson and Tom Gray, is one of the best representations of what Australopithecus afarensis would have looked like. What's so special about this fossil called Lucy is that when it was discovered, the fossil was about 40% of a full skeleton, making her one of the best preserved early hominids. Then we have Australopithecus africanus. The most complete Australopithecus africanus fossil that has been found so far is the famous Taung child, which was discovered in 1924 in Botswana. Lastly, the last type of Australopithecines is Australopithecus robustus. Australopithecus robustus is the biggest and most recent Australopithecine, weighing at 68 kilograms. The East African Australopithecus robustus was given the name Australopithecus boisei. The next stage of human evolution is stage 5, Homo habilis, or the handy man. Homo habilis is the earliest known species of the genus Homo, that is, the first human species, and the Homo habilis is believed to have lived between 2.5 and 1.5 million years ago. Homo habilis was also the first early human to make and use stone tools for hunting and everyday tasks. Because he could make better tools than those before him, he was called the man with ability, hence the handyman. The types of tools that Homo habilis created were referred to as Oldowan tools or pebble tools. The tools were named after Olduvai Gorge, where they were found. They were also known as pebble tools because they were made of small stones. So, what were the features of Homo habilis, or the handyman? Homo habilis had a brain that looked more like a human's, and he could make simple sounds to communicate. Homo habilis fossils were found in Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania in 1964 by Dr. Jonathan Leakey, the son of Mary and Louis Leakey. This discovery was nicknamed Johnny's Child after Jonathan Leakey. In 1972 at Kubifora, near Lake Turkana, more Homo habilis fossils were discovered by Bernard Ngeneo. Bernard was a member of the Hominid Gang, which was a group of Kenyans working for Richard and Maeve Leakey during these very, very important excavations. Let's look at the next stage of human evolution, stage 6, which is Homo erectus, also known as the upright man. So what were some of the features of the upright man? The upright man had a brain that looked more like humans, and he could make simple sounds to communicate. As the name suggests, Homo erectus, also known as the upright man, would stand and walk upright. The most famous Homo erectus fossil was found in a cave in Zhoukoudian, China, and became known as the Peking man, also known sometimes as the Java man. You should also know that Homo erectus was the first hominid to invent and use fire. Homo erectus was clever as he could make simple tools known as Acheulean tools, such as the hand axe, which was used as a knife or even as a scraper. The most complete fossil individual of this species is known as a Turkana boy, which is a well-preserved skeleton that dates around 1.6 million years old. The fossils of Turkana boy were found near Nariokotone River on the northwestern shores of Lake Turkana by one of Kenya's most famous fossil hunters known as Kamoya Kimeu, and this discovery happened in 1984. According to researchers, Homo erectus was also likely the first human to leave Africa. Apart from originating from East Africa, it lived in many places across Asia and possibly Europe and survived for a very long time, about 9 times longer than modern humans have existed. The 7th stage of human evolution is the Homo sapiens, or the thinking man. Homo sapiens lived between 200,000 and 150,000 years ago. And unlike previous stages of evolution that we have already looked at, Homo sapiens were very intelligent and is known as the smartest hominid that ever lived. For this reason, Homo sapiens are also referred to as the wise man. Homo sapiens hunted, gathered, and they fished. Later on, they domesticated animals and plants. They improved their way of life by making a variety of flint, bone, wood, and stone tools, which are known as microliths. The remains of this stage were found at Elia Springs in Kenya, Kanjera, and Kanam. The remains were also found in Bodo and Omo River Valley in Ethiopia. During this stage of human evolution, a total of 3 subspecies of Homo sapiens existed. So let's look at these 3 species one by one. The first subspecies of Homo sapiens is known as the Rhodesian man. This species of Homo sapien was given the name Rhodesian man because the fossils were discovered in Rhodesia, which is today known as Zimbabwe. Rhodesian man's brain and skulls were very similar to those of modern humans. Then we have the second species of Homo sapiens, the Neanderthals. The remains of Neanderthals were found in Neander Valley in Germany. Neanderthals are said to have made clothes from animal skins. They would scrape animal fat so that they could use the skin as clothing. They are believed to have been a mix of hunter-gatherers and nomads, hunting and gathering deer, wild pigs, as well as wild sheep. Communication among the Neanderthals was key, especially because of hunting, which required them to work as a team. So Neanderthals, unlike previous stages of human evolution, had the ability to use complex speech. However, their sentences were probably very basic. It is important to note that the Neanderthals were also probably the first humans in these stages of human evolution to bury their dead. Then lastly, we have the last subspecies of Homo sapiens known as Homo sapiens Cro-Magnon. The fossil remains of Homo sapiens Cro-Magnon were mainly found in Western Europe. Their skeletons are said to still remain in France today. Cro-Magnon was hunter-gatherer, painter, and they lived in caves. They had a big brain capacity and had very complex thinking. The fossil remains of Homo sapiens Cro-Magnon were found in Western Europe. The last stage of human evolution, stage 8, is Homo sapiens sapien, also known as the modern man. Homo sapiens evolved to Homo sapiens sapien, and Homo sapiens sapiens are the modern day humans that we have today. Modern humans have lighter skeletons than earlier humans, and Homo sapiens sapiens can walk fully upright. We Homo sapiens sapiens, unlike our early ancestors in the previous stages of evolution, have large brains, and this feature gives Homo sapiens sapiens advanced curiosity and intelligence, allowing them to plan ahead, make accurate forecasts, and make discoveries that have changed the way we live. So there we have it, all the stages of human evolution and the discoveries that prove that East Africa is indeed the home and the cradle of humankind. These stages of human evolution that we have looked at are very important to Kenya's history because some of the earliest human ancestors were discovered in Kenya. This means Kenya is one of the places where the story of human beings began. And for us lovers of Kenya history, this is very special. If you love Kenyan history, the story of human evolution is important because it is the very beginning of the story. Before kingdoms, before trade, and before colonial history, there were early humans living on this land, and we don't talk about it as often as we should. And that brings us to the end of our video on the stages of human evolution. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with someone else, especially high school students who are learning history. I remember when I was in high school, I struggled to understand this topic. Our history books did not have many pictures of the stages of human evolution, so it was very hard to imagine what these early humans actually looked like. This is why we created this video, to help make the story easier to follow, envision, and understand. Again, if this helped you learn something new, please share it with a student, a teacher, or anyone who loves Kenya history. And don't forget to come back for more stories from the Kenya History channel.
Kenya history.